Hi everyone, thank you for making time this evening, taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with me. I'm very humbled by the turnout, and I really hope that we have a very productive and useful session, and that you get to take away at least one or two things that will help you in your future careers, in your businesses, and in whatever it is that you do. For today, we're going to run through a workshop titled Strategy Express, your 60-minute sprint to success. I'll start with an introduction, and then I'll introduce you to the agenda. Maria stole a little bit of my introduction, so I'm going to be a little bit repetitive, but hope that's okay. Ooh. So, as you already heard, my name is Cristina Munteanu. I'm originally from Moldova. I live in London. I've been there for the past 13 years. I went there to study and then started working in a startup and never came back. That being said, I have been working more recently with a company called Silverbird, which is effectively a fintech startup which does banking for international trade. So I've been with the company Silverbird for the past 3 years. Overall, in my career, I have 9 years of experience, all of it in tech startups. As I mentioned before, the experience that I have is kind of in the industries of fintech, sort of app-based marketplaces, as well as tech for good enterprises. So I've volunteered with a lot of organizations, NGOs, to support women in tech during the COVID crisis and sort of help in any way that I can with the community support that I can give. My expertise per se is sort of building operating system is the key. So I've been in operations the whole time that I've worked in startups. Being the first employee in a company that has now grown to about 130 people meant that I got to do a lot of things, practically got involved in everything except for technical development. So a little bit of a jack of all trades. I'm also, I have extensive experiences in managing business and go-to-market strategies. I have 5 teams currently reporting to me. And sort of managing, planning, people, and culture is a thing that I'm most passionate about in the businesses that I've worked with. Silverbird, my company, has been recognized 2 years in a row already as one of UK's top 100 startups to work for which I'm really proud of to have accomplished that in the organization. I was also recognized as an industry award a few years back as top 100 women in tech in the UK. So now that my credentials are out of the way, a few fun facts about me. So I'm a cat mom to Milo, who is a 3-year-old refugee cat from Moldova that made it to the UK. I love to travel, and I've traveled to many corners of the world so far. I am very passionate about music, techno music, especially actually my educational background is in music, but somehow I've ended up in tech, and I'm a massive lover of wine, especially promoting Moldovan wine and the richness, I guess, that it brings to the world. One thing that I want to say before we dive into the agenda and so on is that I've hosted probably hundreds of team meetings and operational reviews and all hands with more than 100 people, most of it online. I've mentored groups and individuals, I've ran team offsites, but doing a workshop like this, especially a practical workshop, is very daunting for me. So as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit nervous. Please bear with me. I hope that I will be able to add value to you as much as possible, and I will hopefully ease into it as we go along as well. I do have a tendency to speak quite fast, especially when I'm nervous, so please don't hesitate to raise your hand and tell me to slow down. I will actually appreciate the reminder, and I won't take it as an offense. So with that being said, let's dive into our agenda for today. So what we're looking to achieve as an objective from today's workshop is to give you a simple tool, a very versatile tool that you can use in your business, whether you're an entrepreneur that's working on your own business idea, if you work as a contributor in an existing organization, or you haven't quite figured out what you're going to do yet, or you're in the process of that. Today's strategy workshop will equip you with a tool that can be applicable in many different contexts. So we'll start talking a little bit about why strategic planning is important. Then we'll move on into different methodologies that there are out there in the market for strategic planning and zoom into the specific methodology that I've picked for us today. Next up, we'll have a practical workshop where you get to develop your own strategy. So you'll be given a handout that you can work through. It's a workbook that you can take away and sort of repeat this process over again whenever you need to do it. And finally, we'll wrap up and I'll give you some recommended next steps as a result of the work that we are doing today. So this quote is from a Canadian writer, academic and strategy thinker. Harry Mintzberg says that strategy is not the consequence of planning, but the opposite, its starting point. I believe there is a misconception about the fact that a business has to be very mature to have a robust strategy, when in fact, a good strategy is a starting point to any business. It needs a lot of refresh and maintenance as the business grows and scales up. I have a personal experience in the previous startup that I worked with, where I worked for 5 years, which was a business that didn't really have a lot of strategic focus. It kept trying and pivoting. It did that probably 4 or 5 times over. And in the end, it sold out. I guess it was some form of a success, but it failed to reach its full potential. So on that note, let's dive a bit deeper into the importance of strategic planning. So apparently, based on the statistics that I've researched, 9 out of 10 companies fail to execute strategy. But strategic planning is in fact the foundation of every successful organization. No wonder the failure rate for startups is so high. About 85% of businesses, of executive teams, spend less than 1 hour per month planning strategic planning and discussing strategy. There's not enough time commitment from businesses to developing and executing a strategy, and that is obviously displayed by the statistic. About 20% of managers perceive that they are in sync with their company strategy, and that's only 20%. That means 80% of managers don't really know what the direction of a company is and what it is that they're trying to achieve. Imagine what happens with the layers underneath those managers. If the managers themselves don't know it well enough, you can see how individual contributors and their direct reports are probably even more lost. 60% of organizations fail to link budget to the strategy. So there's a significant disconnect between what money is spent on versus what it should be spent on. That leads to a lot of difficult, damaging decisions that lead to that statistic becoming a reality in many businesses. And last but not least, it's important to note that only 5% of the workforce on average understands a company strategy. Without an understanding of a company's strategy, how are you expected to execute on it? In the age of competing priorities, distractions, and harsh market conditions, companies cannot afford to miss the mark on their strategy. A company strategy can be described as what we want our business to achieve and how will we go about it. Aligning the team around the direction of travel is one of the first things that an effective strategic plan accomplishes. It avoids different teams pulling in different directions, opposing directions many times. It achieves synchronizations and sort of better efficiency of work. An effective strategic plan also provides valuable tools for managers and executives to organize their work, priorities, and motivate their teams. It also enables focus on delivering results, and it provides a clear system to track those results. It helps create partnerships with key stakeholders, and by stakeholders here, I mean not only the internal ones, kind of synchronicity between teams, but also investors, suppliers, partners, anyone in the market that you need to convince that you have a solid, sound business. It also displays transparency throughout the company so that people are clear on where the company is headed, what is expected of them, and how their work is contributing to that bigger picture. And last but not least, an effective strategic plan, it ensures optimal deployment of resources. That means budgets are aligned with the most important investment areas, and strategy becomes successfully implemented. And for the next step, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the methodologies for strategic planning. I just wanted to also give you a reminder that if there is anything that is unclear, you're more than welcome to raise a hand and ask me to pause and clarify it. So there are many sort of strategic planning frameworks out there. I'm sure you've come across at least some of the ones that I'm about to present, if not more of them. Examples of such methodologies are the SWOT, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You've got the business model canvas. There's McKinsey's 7S model, the OGSM, which mentions objectives, goals, strategies, and measures. We have the balanced scorecard map, which is a methodology introduced by Harvard professor Robert Kaplan. If you're not familiar with his work, I would highly recommend that you look into it. There's a lot of very valuable things beyond the balanced scorecard map that he's introduced into the market. And Google's renowned OKRs, the objectives and key results, which is something that has certainly been familiar. A lot of startups would have been more familiar with, especially in the recent years. But the most important thing at the end of the day is not what methodology you pick for your strategy, but effectively how you execute on it. So making sure that you pick one that works for you, that is simple enough, and it gives you all the tools needed to make sure that it's executed on successfully. For today's workshop, we will focus on a light version of the OGSM framework that I've mentioned earlier. You can see I'm trying to hypnotize you that this is the right way to go, but by all means, that is not my intention. And the reason why I mentioned it's a light version because even in OGSM, so I've done this workshop with my company. We sat down with the executive teams. It took us probably about 6 hours of actual workshop time to do this properly and implement it in our business. In addition to that, we spent several weeks doing a lot of step one tools that I'll speak to you a little bit more in depth, but effectively doing the legwork, the homework around what are the market data that I need to gather, competitor analysis, understanding our customers, discovery, and so on. What is the internal data if you already have an operating business? How have we been performing so far, and how do we make sure that all of that is reflected in the next iteration of our strategy? And why I've picked the OGSM specifically is that effectively OGSM has its origins back in 1950s. It was first introduced, or at least historically tracked, back in Japan, and it was applied in the context of car manufacturing. It has become a world-class model. It has been adapted over the years, and it's been embraced by a range of Fortune 500 companies like P&G, Coca-Cola, and more. And the OGSM framework, the reason why it was really effective in the context of our company is that it's simple and easy to understand, first of all. So how we came across it was we were probably 8 to 10 months into the development of Silverbird. It was still very early days. We got our first investors on board, the first lead investors in our seed round, and we came to them with a challenge of, okay, we are now 8 people, we're running around in circles, there's so many things that you can do. How do we know what exactly to focus on and how to set our priorities? So they proposed for us to do this workshop together with them, equipped us with a framework, gave us all the support throughout that made sure that we can complete a successful OGSM. Additionally, the framework is very versatile, so it can be used both for long-term strategic planning, up to like a 5-year horizon. It can also be applied to particular projects or products. Anytime you have an intended outcome, so you have a solution that you need to come up, you have a project or a product that you want to develop, and you need a plan on how to achieve it, the OGSM could be your tool. It can also be used on personal things, so like New Year's resolution, they're pretty hard to do in the first place. So it's very, very versatile in its sense. It also fosters clarity, so it makes strategic planning very clear and transparent. There's no need to read a long, massive deck or a paper on what the company does to understand this. So with the OGSM, you can have your strategy fit on one single paper. It gives you clarity about strategic objectives, and it's critical to making sure that the whole company can understand it as well, not just the executive team that came up with the strategy in the first place. It is also very quick to learn and easily understood. And last but not least, it's execution focused. So it sort of connects what you aim to achieve, which is the objectives and the goals, with how you're going to achieve it, and that is your strategies and measures. This builds the execution plan for the company. So let's dive deeper a little bit into what the specific blocks of your GSM consist of and break them down. The objectives effectively answer the question, what do I want to achieve? If we look at the time horizon, so within the next 5 years, where do I want my business to be? What should it stand for in front of my customers? Step 2 takes us through goals. These goals should be SMART, either binary or numeric, and they're targets that effectively to achieve that objectives. What are the other numerical things that will come with it? Next up, we have strategies or strategic pillars. In the version of the OGSM that we've done with my company, they're introduced as strategic pillars, but in many other frameworks, is just referred to as strategies. And strategies effectively explains how will I achieve my desired objectives. And if we think about an analogy of a building or a house, so you have your foundation, which is the objectives and the goals. You have your strategy or your strategic pillars, which are, let's say, you can see them around this room. There's 4 sort of big pillars that this building, the rest of the building holds on to. And then lastly, you have the measures and initiatives. What's all the plumbing, all of the woodwork, all of the furniture that's inside the house that makes it an attractive and decent house. And the measures themselves answer the question of how will I measure that the strategies are achieved. All clear until now? All good? We carry on. So now that we have a basic understanding of OGSM, we'll jump into our practical part of the workshop. I have a couple of recommendations depending on which context you're coming today to the workshop. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a business idea that you're working on or a business that's already on the market, I recommend you to use the OGSM framework to apply it to your particular business strategy. If you're working in a business in a role that is not a founder, I would recommend to choose either to map out the strategy of your wider business, or maybe pick a project that you're working on at the moment, a challenge that you're trying to solve, and apply the OGSM to that context. If you're not, yes?
Can you repeat one more time, what is the strategic pillar in a startup?
A strategic pillar in a startup are effectively building blocks that for the horizon of the next sort of 3 years are not going to move. So if you have a particular product strategy, you'll be able to see the examples. I've provided the examples of how my company did this. But at Silverbird, one of the strategic pillars was a customer acquisition machine. So we know that, you know, if it's now or in 12 months from now or in 3 years from now, we're going to need to continuously acquire customers and nurture them and make sure that we have a really robust pipeline to make sure that the business is sort of powered forward. Another example of a strategic pillar could be your product per se. So you have an app that you're aspiring to build or that you have built already. In our case, we had multi-product capabilities. We had a product that our compliance teams used to analyze the data around the customers. We had another product that our customers used to actually go through the onboarding product. And the third product that we developed was a platform where they used to make the payments. So effectively, you have to think about what are the big blocks that are unmovable that you know your business is effectively built on. All clear?
Yeah.
Cool. So coming back to the roles and recommendations I was making on particular roles, we've covered entrepreneurs, we've covered if you're working in a business in a role that's not a founder, and lastly, if you're not clear on what to work on, you may be playing around with some ideas, but you don't have something formulated, you don't work in an established business, I would recommend that you try your hand just to understand the framework. Try your hand at a simple sample strategy for a well-known brand. For example, pick Coca-Cola or pick Linella and do the OGSM based on them. Anything that you feel a little bit more familiarized with that will at least help you to understand what the context of a framework is and how to apply it. Cool, so I will ask the organizers to hand over your workbook in just a second. So meanwhile, I'll try and explain what it consists of. There is a big write-up within the OGSM workbook that explains what is the prep work that you're supposed to do. So I mentioned that a second earlier, that in order to make an effective OGSM, Actually, maybe I'll pause until everything is handed out because I feel people might be missing on key information. Papa. Merci. Are we all good? Do we have our handouts? We need to print more? Okay. Cool, within this time, I'll, if I may, okay. We might want to bring these around, actually, in case. Okay, here we are. Meanwhile, more of our workbooks will be printed. I'll just give you a couple of pointers on what it consists of. So a lot of the things that I've covered around what an OGSM is covered in there in the first section. There's also a write-up on the prep work that you should be doing when you're doing this exercise end-to-end. So there's things like external market research, internal analysis, all of the different steps that you can do. I highly recommend that once you walk away with a session with the tool, you don't forget about it, but actually make the time alone or with your team to go through the process end-to-end. We will go section by section. I'll give pointers on what to do next. And you also have detailed instruction based on each section and examples inside your workbook. So if you get a little bit lost, we'll have the time for you to actually go and write a different section, but you can also raise a hand. I'll approach you and I can answer any questions you might have. And if you do get ahead in the section, don't hesitate to progress with reading the instructions of the next one. In the meantime, whilst we get the printing sorted, I'll give you a minute to go through the example that we have at Silverbird. What is an example OGSM applied in the context of the business that I work with. You have the objective there, the numerical goals, the strategic pillars. And one thing that I want to draw attention to is that, within a 12-month horizon, we didn't only work on two initiatives within each pillar, but in the interest of keeping this condensed, and because we don't have a whole lot of time today, I've only provided a couple of examples. So I'll take a moment to have some water. If you need to grab anything, take a breath as well. And sorry about the technical hiccup. It wouldn't be a tech workshop without one. If anyone has a joke to tell or a question to ask or a song to sing, I'm more than welcome it. Yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
How can we define the objective? I mean, how much can an objective contain in itself?
The objective itself, I guess, how we landed on our goals and the advantage that we had in the situation is that we had already gathered some data and had traction with customers for a couple of months. A lot of the times, the approach that I would recommend is actually look at your total addressable market, first off. Understand the stage of your business that you're at and what is achievable for you within the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and so on. We did the simple maths between the revenue and the customers. We knew roughly how much annual recurring revenue we had per customer based on the modeling that we did. And that's how we landed on the 1 billion revenue within 5 years, which 3 years down the line, I would say is rather ambitious. But yes, they need to be sort of stretch goals. So ambitious enough for you to have to work hard for it, but not impossible to achieve because then ends up sort of demotivating the team. Other examples of this could be in a business that's very sort of customer focused or customer service intensive. You could pick your CSAT as your objective. So the customer satisfaction score, making sure that you retain a customer satisfaction score of 98, 99%, whatever is achievable. But that's work that you have to do externally with your market, with your competitors, look at what sort of market they are targeting, how many customers are out there for you to grab, and realistically, with your product capabilities and speed of development, how much of that market can you grab?
Thank you.
No worries. Yes?
One question. When you talk about this strategy, there are very huge time frame, let's say horizon of 5 years, 3 years, 12 months. What about flexibility of the system?
Yeah, so the flexibility of a system happens specifically at the level of the initiative's actions and like measures. Because the reason why it kind of pushes you to think about those 12 months goals is because you have to know where you're going to know how to get there, right? So you start mapping out steps and initiatives that you can do, you think will be required to accomplish this strategic pillar. Well, I'll show you in a later example, and that's in your workbook as well, in the blank example, the measures, I've only condensed them to initiatives and owners here, but 2 other very specific measures that you can include is a timeline. So within those 12 months, okay, let's say next year, we've planned the whole strategy for next year. Within Q1, what specific initiatives or actions are we able to achieve? Then you sit down, you review. So in my company specifically, we use a combination of OKRs and OGSM. We look at OGSM, it gives us a long-term horizon, so the 5 years, 3 years, 12 months. And then every single start of a quarter, we sit down, we pick a list of these initiatives and actions that I think are important for us to prioritize this quarter. And month on month, we go and say, okay, this is the progress on initiative A, B, and C, using the OKR framework. At the end of the quarter, you sit down, you review which initiatives and actions you are able to do. You look at the initiatives and actions for 12 months more holistically, and you actually think, I have gathered the following insights. I've validated the following thing with my customer. Initiative 14, 15, and 16, or 7, 8 are no longer relevant, and we need to scrap it. So the whole idea is, as you go along and you learn and you iterate on your product, you continuously update first the initiatives and actions. The strategic pillars, if you discover, let's say, halfway in the year that one of them is no longer a priority for me because a competitor came in the market and sort of grabbed that whole thing, away from us, or there's another thing that should be upgraded to the level of a strategic pillar, you go and update that. But you would do that on a quarterly cadence alongside your OKR reviews. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and how big is your company?
We're 120 people today, 120 plus.
120.
Yeah, and we grew to that in 3 years, which is pretty steep growth. Any other questions?
ARR means the money that the customer spends on your company?
Annual recurring revenue. So how much is within the context of 1 year, how much revenue do we get per each customer? So in my company, again, because we do payments, the volume of payments that our customers spend is bigger, but what percentage cut we make from that is smaller. So this is specific to the revenue. How much revenue do you get per customer per year? LTV is another one that you may have come across, sort of a customer lifetime value, but the ARR focuses on one particular year.
So in case we sell a product and a subscription, we do the median of those two in the ARR?
I suppose so, and only because I know the context of your business, but the product is a one-off thing that you sell most likely, right? So you will add that to the subscription cost, and then you have your ARR. Are we good for the printouts, or are we printing more? Vladelina, we good to go? Yes. Cool. Thank you. Sorry about that. So we'll get started on a workbook now. I'll set a timer on the screen, so we'll have a dedicated time to work on each section. We will also have, after each section, 5 minutes for a volunteer in the room, and I really hope you feel open and comfortable getting up and sort of presenting your case and what you've worked on in each specific question. I would love to have more time to take more of these, but realistically, we're already a little bit behind, so I don't want to take up your whole evening modeling your brains with strategy. If you are volunteering to present your case within the 5 minutes breakdown, please give us a brief 1-minute context on what it is that you're applying your OGSM to. If you're an entrepreneur, briefly what your business idea is. If you're a contributor in a company, what is a project or sort of what the company does. And if you're using a sample company that's popular, just mention the company to us. If the time allows, I will try and give on-the-spot feedback. We also have quite a bit of time in between, so if you need help as you're writing up your objective, I can come up to you and we can briefly discuss it before we move on. Without further ado, I will set our first timer for 10 minutes to have a go at drafting your objectives. Remember that you're answering the question of what do we want to be known for in 5 years from now? What is the long-term strategic vision for the company or product, project, depending on what you're working on? Keep it brief, keep it 1 or 2 sentences max. If you can do it 1, it's ideal. And I shall start our timer now. Are we good to move on? Can I get a show of hands if anyone needs more time? Seems we're okay. Cool, ahead of time, I love it. Thank you. All right, so I'll reset the timer for 5 minutes. I know you're all a little bit shy still and we're still warming up, but can I get any volunteer to present their objective to the group? Yes, please. Can you tell us first a little bit about what the business context is?
My name is Olesya. I am the founder of Rockman, recruiting optimization and candidate management system. It's a software as a service.
Cool.
So Rockman in 5 years.
Yes.
Rockman empowers successful companies worldwide to recruit and retain the right people.
I like it. We have a little bit more time. Anyone else wants to run us through their example? Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't get the memo.
Hi, my name is Dimitri. I'm founder of the agency Riv Studio, but actually I came here with my new project. It's called Bold School. It's an online school, and our objective is to grow new generation of top 1 creative people.
Sorry, repeat
Top 1% of creative people.
Ah, nice. I like it.
So yeah, if you want to be in the top 1 creative people in the world, you can come to us, and this can be our main goal.
That's a really good objective. Well done. Nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more volunteers? Yes, please go ahead, Kalin.
Take it.
Your mic.
Card share startup.
Your name?
My name is Dorian. Yep. The card share startup. In 5 years, it will provide the most efficient networking app for exchanging and managing contacts for business people during public and private events.
Cool. If you don't mind, we'll spend a little bit of time during the networking session and I'll help you tweak that a little bit because I know the context of your business, I think the app is not the only thing you provide, so you might want to expand that a little bit more from just being an app to being a platform, or just using the specific wording of app sort of narrows you down when you don't know exactly, maybe 2 years from now you realize, actually, I'll have another product that will also do that, so just to, you need to think big at this stage.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I love that we're breezing through this, and because we had a few hiccups around the way, I will try and keep us moving. So for our next section, let's go to page 4. I believe some of you have already had a chance to read through that. What we're doing next is spending a couple of minutes to work on a few goals. The recommended best practice for OGSM is to limit that to between 3 to 5 goals maximum, because if you have too many focus areas, ultimately objectives will define how do we measure success, or what are the sort of North Star metrics that we hold ourselves accountable for. And if we have too many, that means you're sort of going to diffuse your focus. So yeah, don't worry too much about accuracy at this stage. Back to Dima's question about how do I measure, how do I know? we're just going through an example right now. Once you do your step 1 exercise, you will be able to become much more accurate about this. So let me reset that timer. And let's go through. You're ready already. Keep going, keep getting ahead in that case. We're almost at the end of our time. If you need more time, you can keep drafting. Meanwhile, I'll call up on more assistance from volunteers if we have any. If you want to present your goals to the team, hopefully some new faces, please raise a hand.
My goals.
Yes, your goals. Go ahead, if you'd like to. Microphone. Yeah, a couple of words about you, what you're up to, what you're doing. So.
Hello, my name is Yuri. I am Business Development Director for one worldwide IT company based in Dubai. So I'm responsible for a Middle East and African market. So mostly our customers, there are mobile operators. One of them it's Moldcell here in Moldova. And my goals is for next 5 years, it's $100 million revenue on the Middle East and African market only, and with a margin rate of not less than 30%.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, we have time for one more. If anyone else wants to, if not, we shall move on. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So my goals is very simple. In 3 years, I want to have MRR 1 million, and 5 years is 5 million MRR. About the customers, it's more than...
Sorry. MRR?
MRR, yes.
So monthly 1 million monthly
yes.
recurring revenue.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So about the customers, we want to teach more than 1 million students.
Cool. I'll give you the same feedback, just the more than becomes a little bit ambiguous, because then you're going to get to that 1 million and say, but I wanted more, you know? So be very specific with that number.
Okay. So if talking about the side effect of the goals, it's to launch more than 1K projects, initiatives around of the Bolt School. That, yeah, it's one of our main goals.
Cool.
So, thank you.
Sounds good. Keep them as specific as possible. That would be my only feedback. Well, just not more than. Using that wording more than or 1,000 plus brings a lot of ambiguity about. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. I think we'll move on from now. And thanks a lot for being so collaborative and making this so easy for me. As we scroll through to page 5 in your workbook, our next step is going through the strategic pillars. So referring back to my analogy earlier, what we're trying to achieve here is to answer the question of what are the core pillars, the essential building blocks around which the business will be built in the next 3 years. So we're going from a 5-year time horizon to 3 years. These strategic pillars should be quite constant, so they shouldn't change every month to month within your business. It's something that's stable, that you know that you should build. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, if you have some insights or as you go through your business development, you know, you're a year and a half in and you realize that is no longer a strategic pillar for me, you know, something else changed, you're always welcome to change them. As we did with the goals, we'll try and keep these to 3 to 5 strategic pillars. Otherwise, it's too many building blocks and not enough space inside the building to actually move around. So I will reset that 5-minute timer for us now and let you go through it. One more thing, if you can number your strategic pillars, so number 1, 2, 3, 4, it will be relevant for the next section that we go through. more time? Cool. 30 seconds more, and then we'll go into a specific case and you can carry on. Where's my strategic pillars volunteers?
Yeah, I can try.
Go ahead, my favorite person in the room. Sorry, I'm not picking favorites. I shouldn't have said that.
So first, I have only four pillars. First one is to build strong company culture company. Second one it's rocket customer acquisition process. So to build more, to acquire more and faster customers. Third one it's automation of the business process because it's our bigger problem. And third one it's fast track for onboarding process. So we have onboarding for new teachers and students.
Fast track onboarding.
Yes.
Okay. Do you need to specify that it's onboarding for, like, because I guess it's sort of a multi-sided platform what you have, so it should be onboarding specifically for the teacher side or onboarding for both kind of sides of a platform?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will make it.
And
mostly for the teachers because it's here is the more heavy process, but
okay. And I'll throw another one at you that I think might be relevant, although I'm not trying to extend your focus areas here. As I understand, you're building an online school, so it's one thing acquiring customers and bringing more and more and more of them into the pipeline. It's another thing retaining them, because that will be eventually your bread and butter. You could either build that retention aspect into the customer acquisition machine pillar, or potentially think of that as an additional pillar to add.
okay, thank you.
Cheers. Any more? God. Oh, we have a new face. Da, poate și în română, dacă e ok pentru... Sorry. Well, I'll allocate more time. We're getting ahead. So.
Da. Bună ziua, mă numesc Sorin, sunt cofondator HeroDoc. Noi dezvoltăm primul spital pediatric din Republica Moldova. Deci încep cu toate trei sau doar...
Doar strategic pillars la moment.
Deci primul strategic pillar fie să ne focusăm pe customer service, adică să aibă o satisfacție plus, nu știu, 95%. Doua este colaborările cu asigurătorii, adică sunt 10 asigurători care dorim să abordăm. Și a treia, dezvoltare pe partea de necesități la utilizatori. Asta se referă pe partea de medicină online, medicină la domiciliu și medicină cu programare, de exemplu, la o clinică fizică.
Ok. Sună bine. Un quick feedback la primul pillar strategic. 95% satisfaction rate trebuie să meargă în goals, de fapt. Pillars nu neapărat trebuie să fie numerice. Dacă vrei să o menții așa, e în regulă. Adu-mi aminte care era a doilea?
Cu insurance?
Partnerships. Da, yes. Asta am vrut să spun, adică anume cuvântul parteneriate, cred că e cheie acolo și deja poți să ai diferite tipuri de parteneriat ca să nu devină, știi, cum write-up-ul ăsta prea lung. Parteneriatul și deja în inițiative spui vreau parteneriat cu ăștia și cu ceilalți. Overall, good.
Merci.
Igor? Sorry, Yuri. Let's pass on the mic.
Okay, thank you. In order to achieve goals from I told you recently, so strategic pillars are the following. First, multi-products capability. Well, as more products we will have, as more chances we have to reach the goals. Second, local customer support, managed services, and local resale offices. So it means customer they prefer to be a local presence, and they are managed service when our engineers are
on site,
and they can manage the technical support, etc. Can launch new products just on site, and in addition to this, they can upsell new products as well.
Nice, I love it.
Second, efficient payment infrastructures. As R&D are all over the world, in India and Serbia, and also it's very good to understand these payment channels, how it will go, so how to spend it by good way.
So sort of cost centers,
Yes,
is that what you mean? Or like, because in the
No.
case, the payment infrastructure that we have, for example, at Silverbird is that our customers are making payments worldwide.
No,
from
no,
one
I
card
mean
company.
that,
So,
okay, for
as
example,
you mentioned the word R&D, I got a bit confused. in that.
as for example, we have a customer in Mauritania, so they have to pay to a company in, let's say, in Serbia, that the R&D in
So
Serbia.
make sure that
yeah,
all of those...
because normally all these transfers, there are taxes, there are
exchange rates,
exchanges, etc.
I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah,
That is my
there
bread
are
and
losses,
butter,
and
so
it's
I know all about
and really
that.
it's a very big pain. And another strategic pillars, the last and not least, minimizing delivery costs. So normally pain and headache, it's delivery, it's becomes more and more expensive, and this is one of the strategic pillars to minimize delivery costs. Thank you.
One thing that I might recommend with that last strategic pillar is that, again, you make it slightly broader because you're speaking specifically about delivery here, but ultimately what you're trying to achieve is cost efficiency or like better unit economics or things like that. So maybe not to narrow yourself down specifically to the delivery cost, but actually think of it as slightly broader pillar of cost efficiency or reducing unit economics or stuff like that. That will include delivery and other things.
Okay.
Cool. I'm very, very sorry. We'll call you up in the measures if that's fine. Just conscious of time and we need to move on. Lady conectat? That's okay. All right. Cool. And on that note, so we are moving on to step 6, which is our measures. I want to refer back to what I said earlier. Measures don't only need to include the initiatives and the owner, as you see in the template here, but because of the fact that this can take quite a bit of time to do, and I hope you will take this away and do this fully, I've restricted the initiatives only to just mentioning an owner. The reason why I suggested earlier to number your strategic pillars is that, again, in the interest of space and actually being able to fit everything on one page, you see the first column, you just reference the number of your strategic pillars. So this particular initiative, what strategic pillar does it connect to? I will put back on screen the Silverbird example just so you can see how I've sort of structured that. But effectively, yeah, so you have this strategic pillar has the following initiatives or actions, and so on and so forth. Given that we're, again, tight on time, I would recommend either to put 1, 2 initiatives in each of the pillars that you defined, or just take one of the pillars and break it down into initiatives for now. So I'll allow 7 minutes for that just because it's a little bit more work, but let's go ahead and draft up our strategic pillars. Sorry, I forgot to mention the time horizon here is 12 months. So we're going from 3-year strategic pillars. In the next year, what are the specific things that we need to do towards each of these strategic pillars to progress our work on them and therefore the goals as well. Okay, we're coming to the end of our drafting time. Don't worry too much if you didn't manage to cover the whole ground. Again, you're taking this worksheet with you home. We'll make sure with the organizers to also send it to you in a digital format if that makes life easier for you, hopefully alongside the little feedback form. And if you need to validate again with me, I'll be available here for a while in the networking session. You can always come up to me and ask me any questions to help you with this step. I have promised someone in the audience here priority at the next section. So if you're ready, do you want to walk us through your strategic pillars? The mic. Aici în fața la ecran.
So, as you remember, we're creating the service that helps to move green. And our measures is the, first of all, raise the fund. Yeah. Find the alternative marketing traction and traffics. Yeah. Create a developers team, create a marketing team, and find the business client pain points. This is pretty
Customer
important.
discovery, yeah.
But focus on the business. Right now we're focusing on the residential, like the just common clients.
But I mean, it can be a business customer, it can be an individual customer, it can be, I don't know, like a governmental sort of body.
That's all.
Cool, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
what was the strategic pillar? How did you break them down? How did the initiatives connect with which strategic pillars?
What about strategic pillars? I determine the first of all 80% automated process of the client traffic generation. It would be great for us to just as a pillars and build strong go-to-market model and team execution. Like it would be great.
Nice.
Yeah, and customer acquisition machine. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Do we have any more? Thank you very much, by the way.
Thank you.
Any more volunteers?
So I choose just second. My strategic pillar is customer acquisition process rocket and retention process aspect. But here I put more measure and initiatives. I don't know if it's right. But first of all, it's test, find, and implement the right business model, because right now we're on floating
product market fit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Second one is to build omni-channel for the customer acquisition, launch ambassador program with the influencers, and launch general referrals program. Launch crowdfunding for the courses. We have some idea that we didn't saw on the market yet. Sign strategic partnership with the top 10 global brands. Right now we have only 2, but we need 8 more, because we can promise new jobs, new internships, maybe tuition or scholarship. This is process that we want to develop. And acquisition of the client service department and sales development department.
Okay, so hiring, yes.
Yeah,
let's just that terminology, right? Sounds like you have it all figured out.
I hope so.
Thank you. No, it makes sense. So do take the time to actually put a timeline against each of them, who the owner from your team, if it's yourself, will be, and what specific KPIs will you measure, or so what metrics will help you define success on those particular initiatives. Yeah, but effectively the initiatives become yours. So like the initiative is your objective, and then the metrics are your OKRs, and then you take that into a sort of quarterly cadence, monthly cadence, whatever way OKRs work for you. At least that's how we made OGSM work in our company.
Can I ask something? Here we have some troubles with the team, because we put OKRs. We know we have a person who are looking for implementing, so not looking, but are on track with all the OKRs. But the thing is that you need to track every person, if they on time with the objectives, if they have some problems or not. And I find that we need one more person who will make the track for all the persons.
Come and talk to me during the networking. I'll tell you a little bit about the system that we found to work in our company without having yet another person in the team that does specifically that. But if it's of interest to anyone else, I can cover it. Yeah? Okay, I'm getting some nodding heads. So effectively, what we've done in Silverbird to tackle specifically that problem is that some people would go and draft up their OKRs, some will not. Some of it will be like in the format that's required, some not. But most importantly, the cadence that we had initially, so set OKRs and have them for 3 months, it didn't really work because it was too long of a time. You know, you wouldn't really like have these. You need to have these micro steps to actually have the check-ins with a team. In our case, me as a COO, I've taken on the responsibility of first rolling out the system in the company. We built a pretty digestible template in Notion and sort of routines around it. So at the beginning of every quarter, we ask every single function lead or individual contributor if they have an area. So first off, break them down by areas, right? So I don't know in your case if you have one person for each team or you already have certain teams that like are formulated. We're not mature enough as a company, and we're 3 years down the line to have OKRs distilled at an individual level. We do them at the function level. So we have the function layer. Each function has their OKRs. So we give a heads up to the team, let's say 2 weeks in advance. Your Q3 OKRs are due and ready, like have to be readily drafted by this date. Then once that date comes up, me as the owner of that process, again, I would say for yourself to do that as a founder, if you have another senior leader in the team, rather than someone else external, because you will be owning a lot of those things. You will have visibility over what should be an objective and what shouldn't be an objective. Other people might not have it, especially a new person that you bring in the team might not have all the context that you have or another senior leader in your team might have. So then you go and do a review of those, make sure that everything is in line with your OGSM, and then start to kind of validate it, give feedback, and at the beginning of the OKR cycle, you have a session where everyone sort of presents their OKRs to the rest of the team. That session is a really good opportunity to identify dependencies. So you might have like marketing wants to achieve this, but actually they need product input to be able to do that because that particular feature is not yet there. Or sales is dependent on the resource and capacity of customer service. So if they run too fast, but then the customers have a bottleneck at the point where they need to receive the service, then it's a problem. So it allows all the team to align between these dependencies on one another and make sure that there's not something that it's in particular sort of clashing, I guess, in that case. So you do this OKR reviews at the end of the first month. So again, we have monthly check-ins for the OKRs and then quarterly kickoff sessions and quarterly review sessions of results. So yeah, effectively build a routine that will help you keep track and have accountability in the team as well. Because if someone has to stand up in front of a team and look at their OKRs and say, I failed this, and that, there'll be some questions to be asked there, Some other people are going to see that it's okay for them to fail at, well, why the hell would I do it? Like, why am I breaking my back to achieve that? So those actual sessions bring a lot of that accountability in the team, making the team go through and review them together and scrutinize it and stuff. We've found that to be really useful. And then once the actual review happens, we go back to this, we look at the next set of priorities, we try to understand if there's anything else that's missing from there that we've discovered in this quarter that we need to add in, and we repeat and we repeat and we repeat. Make sense?
Yes. We actually use Notion too. We migrate from the ClickUp. Notion was with low level of not retention, but I forgot this word.
Engagement.
It's easy to understand, easy to make onboarding on Notion.
Yeah.
And
lower barrier to entry.
Yes. Thank you very much. And team received this very well. And I start to put the process in this specific direction when I have the most problem. For example, for me, the marketing way was the hell. Like I don't know what is happening in this department. Cool. And now I will use objectives for marketing, but with other departments it's a little bit harsh. So I have some couple of questions.
I'll show you afterwards the sort of the system that we've built within the capabilities of Notion to manage our OKRs. Awesome. And I'm very sorry that you have taken all the time from everyone else to speak about their objective, but I really enjoyed the discussion. I hope it was useful for everyone else as well. So as I mentioned, I'll be around for the networking if you want to ask more questions. You'll have my contact information at the back of your workbook as well. I'm more than happy to have any of your questions reach me, and I'll try my best to answer them. And yeah, so with that, we move into our wrap-up and sort of recommended next steps. Some of these steps are already outlined within your guide. So if you navigate to page 8, but not right now. I don't want you to get distracted. Stay with me, please. I just wanted to make you aware that you do have this information available within your workbook, and the goal will be to get all of your OGSM designed in a single page sort of template to the extent possible, because if you have 17 initiatives like we did, it's not entirely plausible, but it's still a good measure to track. And as we move into the next steps, I guess the most important things to mention is that plans are only good intention unless they immediately degenerate into hard work. So ultimately, execution is key. You know, we've only scratched the surface today. You still have a bit of work to bring your OGSM to a close. Hopefully, the guidance that you have received today and the practical interactions that we had gave you a better understanding of a framework than what you came with today. Any planning process that doesn't start externally misses the mark. So I know it feels like you've made a lot of progress today and you have it all figured out through the work that we've done together. I would encourage you to go back to step one and actually make sure that you have all of that context available to you. You have the research work, both the external and the internal one. It will help you significantly to make sure that you have a really robust strategic system. Use a workbook to guide you and your team through the full process. If you're only just starting up, it's only you right now, you know, it's one thing. If you have other people that you're working with that need to familiarize themselves with this, involve them in the process. It's really important to identify what are the key people that are responsible maybe for some of these strategic pillars or should have a say in what the strategic pillars are. As I mentioned in our case, we had 8 people in the team at the time, about 5 of them with executive roles, as you tend to have when your company is just starting up. We got all of them around the table, and once we developed the OGSM and the initiatives, then that went through and got cascaded to the rest of the individuals in the team so that they're familiar with it, there are routines built around it, and I guess I forgot to click my thing because that's exactly what I was just explaining. So yeah, keep your team involved, cascade the output to your wider team, and carry out your plan with a consistent management routine, which is what particularly I was explaining just now. You know, have monthly check-ins, have quarterly reviews, refresh your OGSM as frequently as you feel that you need to, but be aware of not shifting, you know, because the whole purpose of it is to give you a direction and focus. If you try to, you know, if every month, wherever the wind blows, your OGSM goes, I think it's not going to be proving to be the most useful tool. And at the end of the day, focus less on bureaucracy of a template and more on the execution. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be formulated to the highest standard. What matters the most is that it gives you enough of a guidance for you to be able to execute. And I believe that is all. If you didn't have the courage to speak out your questions in a group, want me to validate your OGSM, get in touch with me, approach me at the networking session. I'm very, very keen and willing to help. I would also appreciate your feedback, so do come by, say hi. Let's have a brief chat and let me know what you thought about it. As I said, this was pretty experimental. It's the first time I've done it in a group setting that is not my team. So I hope it has proven valuable to you all, and I'd love to hear that. And yeah, if you need more time, please do get in touch with me afterwards. I really thank you for your patience, for your energy, for the volunteers. It has been much more fun than I even imagined. As you probably can see that the person that I came into the session and the person I am now, you've all helped me feel really comfortable and open up, and I really enjoyed collaborating with you. You can find my LinkedIn and sort of contact information there. Let's connect, and I'll be more than happy to hear about your progress using the OGSM, and hopefully all of your organizations skyrocket to success. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I suppose that there's certain bottles of wine there that have been catching my eye for quite a bit of time now. So I invite you all to the networking session. We can enjoy some Silkuta wine and snacks and pizza. Amazing. Cool. Thank you.